When I walked into that courtroom, my daughter Alicia giggled and my son-in-law Trevor just shook his head. They thought I was a confused old man in obstacle. They thought they had already won. But then the judge looked up. His face went pale, his hand shaking as he whispered, "My God, is that really him?" Everyone turned and stared. Nobody had a clue who I really was until that day. My name is Julius Vaughn. I am 71 years old. And what I'm about to tell you is the story of how I lost a daughter but reclaimed my life. Before I continue, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. And please hit like and subscribe if you believe that sometimes the only way to teach a lesson is to remind people exactly who you are. The whole thing started 3 weeks ago in the quiet of my kitchen. This little house in Decatur, Georgia has been too quiet for 5 years now, ever since my Lucille passed. I was making my morning coffee, the cheap store brand in the red can, just the way I like it. I looked around at the faded wallpaper, the old linoleum floor that had a permanent curl by the refrigerator. This house was our compromise. Lucille. God rest her soul, she loved nice things. She loved the flash, the big parties, the status. She came from old Atlanta money, and she never quite let me forget that I was just a boy from the 9th Ward in New Orleans who got lucky with his mind. I built a career she could be proud of, but I never learned to like the things she liked. When she passed, all that pressure left with her. I sold the big drafty house in Buckhead. I sold the European cars that were always in the shop. I moved here to this small 2-bedroom bungalow on a quiet street. I didn't need the money. I just needed the peace. I thought finally I could just be. I thought wrong. The doorbell rang sharp and impatient. It was Alicia, my daughter, and her husband Trevor. Alicia looked just like her mother, beautiful, sharp, and always smelling of perfume that cost more than my monthly electric bill. Trevor. He was a man with a family name that opened doors and, as I would find out, very bad credit. He smiled too much, a salesman's smile. "Dad," Alicia said. She kissed the air next to my cheek. "The house smells old. It's called history, Alicia," I said, pouring her a cup of the cheap coffee I knew she wouldn't drink. "Trevor." I nodded. He clapped me on the shoulder a little too hard. "Julius, good to see you, man. Still tinkering with those old model trains?" I just nodded. We sat in the living room on the couch Lucille always said was an embarrassment. The silence was heavy, awkward. Trevor cleared his throat, the sound of an engine turning over. "Julius, listen. Alicia and I, well, we're here because we're worried about you." I raised an eyebrow. "Worried? You're all alone here, Dad." Alicia chimed in, her voice dripping with a fake concern that was almost insulting. "This neighborhood, it's not the safest, let's be honest. And this house, it's just too much for one person." "I manage," I said flatly. Trevor leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, and placed a glossy brochure on my worn-out coffee table. It showed smiling, gray-haired people playing shuffleboard. "We found this place, Julius. Willow Creek Estates. It's fantastic. Gated community. On-site medical staff 24/7. They even have a golf simulator." I looked at the picture. It looked like a luxury prison. "I don't play golf," I said. "That's not the point, Dad." Alicia snapped, her patience already wearing thin. "The point is you're not safe here. What if you fall? What if you get sick? No one would know for days." "I have my phone. I have neighbors. Mrs. Davis checks on me." "Neighbors?" Trevor laughed, a short barking sound. "Julius, we're talking about professional care, a place where you can be managed." Managed. The word hung in the air, cold and clinical. "I don't need to be managed, Trevor. I need you both to either drink your coffee or leave." That's when Alicia stood up. The mask didn't just slip, it shattered on the floor. "Managed is exactly what you need," she shouted. "My God, Dad, look at this place. It's pathetic. You're living like a poor man. What will people think?" "I have never in my 71 years cared what people think," I said, my own voice getting cold. "This is my house. I am not leaving." "You are," she shouted, her face turning red. "You have to. We need you to, need me to." And there it was. The truth, raw and ugly. Trevor stood up trying to play the peacemaker, but it was too late. "Alicia, honey, calm down. He's just Confused. I am not confused, I said, standing to face them. This is my property. The conversation is over. No, it's not. Alicia's voice was almost a scream now. Trevor has an opportunity, a huge one. A developer wants to buy this entire block, this whole neighborhood, but they need this property to close the deal. We could make a fortune. You could make us a fortune. I stared at her. Not we. Us. You're selling my house out from under me. We're trying to secure our future, she cried. Something you never cared about. You were always happy to just be, to be simple, while Mom and I, we wanted more. This is our chance. Trevor needs this deal. Trevor put his hand on her arm. Alicia, enough. No. She rounded on him then, back on me. He doesn't get it. He's just a stubborn old man, Dad. You're confused. You don't know what's best for you anymore. You've been erratic, forgetful. The neighbors are worried. That was a lie. My neighbors and I play chess every Thursday. You're erratic, Dad? She said again, her eyes narrowing into slits. And if you won't do this the easy way, we'll do it the hard way. We'll prove you're not competent to make your own decisions. I felt the blood drain from my face. It wasn't just an angry outburst. It was a strategy. Incompetent. The legal term. The one that strips you of everything. Your rights, your dignity, your name. Trevor looked at me. His salesman's smile was gone, replaced by a cold, appraising stare. She's right, Julius. This is happening one way or another. Think about it. They left. The front door slammed shut, rattling the small silver-framed picture of Lucille on the mantel. I stood there for a long time. The silence of the house rushed back in, but it wasn't peaceful anymore. It was cold. This wasn't about a house. This wasn't about my safety. This was war. And they had just fired the first shot. I sat in that quiet living room for almost an hour after they left. The slam of that door still hung in the air. We'll do it the hard way. It was not just a threat. It was a declaration of intent. My whole life, my real life, the one Alicia knew nothing about, was built on procedure, on evidence, on anticipating the opponent's next move. They called me the Hammer in the federal courthouse, not because I was loud, but because when my gavel fell, it was final. And it was final because the work had been done. I had outthought every high-priced lawyer, every corrupt official that ever stood in my courtroom. And now my own daughter. My own flesh and blood. The phone rang, pulling me from my thoughts. A local number I did not recognize. I let it ring twice. I never pick up unknown numbers. But something told me this was part of it. Hello? A young woman's voice, nervous. Mr. Julius Vaughn. This is he. Sir, this is Brenda from Decatur First National Bank. Your branch manager, Mr. Harris, asked me to call. We have a situation with a recent transfer request on your savings account. My blood went cold. I have not requested any transfers. That's just it, sir. A digital request came in this morning for $25,000. It was flagged by our system. The signature, it was very close, sir, but just slightly off. A bit too smooth. Too smooth. I felt the air leave my lungs. Of course it was. I remembered teaching Alicia how to sign my name. She was in high school, maybe 15. She wanted to go on a field trip, and I was stuck in chambers, could not sign the permission slip. Just make it look like mine, baby girl, I had said over the phone. Don't make a habit of it. A small, innocent memory. A father-daughter moment. And now she had weaponized it. Mr. Vaughn, Brenda asked, are you still there? We denied the transfer, of course, but Mr. Harris thought you should know immediately. Thank you, Brenda. I am on my way. I hung up the phone. $25,000, not a random amount. It was just under the federal reporting limit for currency transactions. They were sloppy. They were stupid. But they were also fast. They had not wasted a minute. My 1998 Buick LeSabre is not much to look at. The paint on the hood is faded to a dull gray, and the dashboard has a long, jagged crack from the Georgia sun. Lucille used to beg me to get rid of it. Julius, it is an embarrassment. Alicia refused to be seen in it after she turned 16, but the engine is sound. It gets me where I need to go. And today I needed to go to the bank. I walked into the Decatur First National. It is an old brick building, not one of those new glass boxes. The people who work here have been here for decades. Kevin Harris, the branch manager, saw me from his glass-walled office and immediately stood up. He waved me in his face, etched with worry. "Julius," he said, shaking my hand, "I am so glad you came in. Brenda told you. She told me," I said, sitting in the hard wooden chair opposite his desk. "Show me." Kevin and I go way back. His father, Otis, was the bailiff in my federal courtroom for 20 years. A good man. A loyal man. I had helped Kevin get his first internship at this very bank right out of Morehouse. He was family in a way my own daughter was proving not to be. He did not hesitate. He turned his monitor around. This came in at 9:05 a.m., right after you usually go for your walk. I looked at the screen. My signature, Julius A. Vaughn. It was almost perfect. But the J was too practiced. The V was too neat. Mine is sloppier, the result of signing thousands of judicial orders over 40 years. "It's good," I murmured, "but it is not mine." I knew it. Kevin slammed his hand lightly on the desk. "It was just too clean." "But that is not the worst part, Julius. That is not why I asked you to come in." I looked at him. "What happened?" He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "About 30 minutes after the system flagged it, before we even had a chance to call you, he called us. Your son-in-law, Trevor Manning." The air in the room felt thin. "What did he want?" Kevin looked uncomfortable. "He was pushy, Julius. He said he was calling on your behalf. He said he knew the transfer had been flagged, and he wanted to personally vouch for it. He said you were, how did he put it, having a bit of a senior moment, and that you had authorized him to handle your finances." I stared at Kevin. I did not move. I just stared. "I told him," Kevin continued quickly, "that without a legal power of attorney I could not discuss the account with him. He got angry. He said I was being unhelpful. He said you were getting confused a lot lately, and that they were in the process of getting the paperwork to protect you from yourself." Protect me from myself. The words from Alicia's threat this morning came rushing back. "We'll prove you're not competent. This was not a plan. This was an active conspiracy. They were already building their case." The signature was Plan A. The confused old man was Plan B. "Julius," Kevin said, his voice soft, "this is bad is not it. This is more than just kids being greedy." I looked at this good man, his father's son, a man of integrity. "Yes, Kevin, it is. What do you need? A new account. Freeze everything, I can lock it down right now." I shook my head. "No. I need you to do nothing." He looked confused. "Nothing. But they will try again." "Let them," I said, my voice hard as stone. "From now on, I want you to log every call, every attempt, every email. Do not deny them. Just stall them. Tell them it is under review. Buy me time. Can you do that?" Kevin Harris looked at me, and I saw the recognition in his eyes. He was not seeing the old man in the faded sweater. He was seeing the man his father used to talk about at the dinner table. He was seeing the hammer. "Yes, sir, Judge Vaughn," he said. "Consider it done." I did not go straight home. I drove the Buick to Piedmont Park. I sat on a bench by the lake watching the runners go by. I needed air. I needed to think in the open, away from the walls of my house. They were moving faster than I had anticipated. I did not pull out a smartphone. I do not own one. I pulled out an old black flip phone, the kind people laugh at. It has one purpose. It has one number on speed dial. I flipped it open. The screen glowed. I held down 1. It rang twice. "This is Maya." Her voice was sharp fast already in the middle of 3 other things. "Maya, it is Julius." The line went silent for a beat. All the background noise stopped. I knew she had just closed her office door. "Judge, is everything all right? You never call this number." "No, Maya. Everything is not all right. I need you in Atlanta." "When?" "Yesterday," I said. "But tonight will have to do. Drop everything. Bring the real files, the real ones, the ones Lucille never knew about." Another pause. "It is happening, is not it? It is Alicia." I did not have to explain. Maya knew. She was my law clerk for 3 years. She helped me set up the trusts, the firewalls, the entire structure of my real life. She knew Lucille's spending. She had predicted this day would come. "Yes," I said, "it is Alicia, and she is sloppy, but she is also desperate. Get here, now." I am booking a flight, she said. I will be at your house by 10 p.m. Do not talk to them. Do not sign anything. Do not eat anything they bring you. I know the drill, counselor, I said, and snapped the phone shut. I drove the Buick home as the sun started to get low in the sky. The house looked the same. The azalea bushes needed trimming. The paint was peeling on the porch, but it did not feel like home anymore. It felt compromised. It felt like a stage, and I was the unwilling actor. I put my key in the lock. The door was already slightly ajar. My heart stopped. I always lock my door. Always. I pushed it open slowly. Alicia, I called out. Trevor. Silence. I walked inside. Nothing seemed out of place. The coffee cups were still in the sink from this morning, but someone had been here. I could smell it. That expensive, sharp perfume Alicia wears. I walked to the kitchen table, and there it was. Not a threat, not a note, something worse. It was a bright, colorful, trifold brochure placed precisely in the center of the table. Oakwood Senior Living, your next chapter in secure care. This was different from the one Trevor had this morning. This one was not a luxury estate. This one looked basic, clinical. It was a message. This is where you'll end up if you do not cooperate. And tucked right into the door's mail slot, another one. This one was from Fulton County Elder Watch. A concerned neighbor reported you may be in need of assistance. A social worker will be by to check on your welfare. A concerned neighbor. They were not just calling the bank. They were calling the state. They were activating every system designed to protect old people, but they were twisting it. They were using it as a weapon. I went to the front window, the one that looks out onto the street. I stood just behind the curtain, peering through the gap. I waited. I did not have to wait long. A black BMW 7 Series, Trevor's car. It drove down the street impossibly slow. It stopped for a moment 2 houses down. Then it continued, turned the corner, and was gone. He was not just checking if I was home. He was checking if the social worker had come yet. He was checking to see if his traps had been sprung. I let the curtain fall. I was being watched. My bank was compromised. My house had been entered. They were trying to poison me. They were trying to declare me insane. I looked at the clock. 7 p.m. Maya would be landing soon. All right, I whispered to the empty quiet room. You want to play hardball, kids? You have no idea what hardball is. At exactly 9:50 p.m., a quiet black sedan I did not recognize parked 3 streets down. Not in front of my house. Not even on my block. She was good. She had always been good. A few minutes later, there was a soft knock on my back door, the one that led through the utility room. Not the front door where Trevor was probably watching. I opened it. Maya Thompson stood in the dim, yellow glow of my porch light. She is a tall, sharp woman in her 40s, dressed in a perfectly tailored navy pantsuit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. She was not carrying a suitcase. She was carrying a locked, hard-sided briefcase. Judge, she said, her voice low and all business. She stepped inside, her eyes scanning the street behind her before I closed the door. She looked around my tiny, cluttered kitchen, her expression unreadable. You look terrible, Julius, she said finally, letting a small, worried smile crack her professional mask. And this place smells like old coffee. It's good to see you too, Maya, I said, pointing to the kitchen table. Sit. You made good time. My flight was delayed, but I made the driver break a few laws, she said, placing the briefcase on the table and clicking the latches. You said to bring the real files. I brought them all. The Cayman accounts, the Delaware LLCs. The portfolio Lucille thought was just a little retirement fund. You sure you want to open this box, Judge? I sat down across from her. The faded floral wallpaper suddenly felt even more ridiculous. They opened it for me, Maya, I said. This morning my daughter and her husband told me I was incompetent. This afternoon they tried to steal $25,000. An hour ago they had me under surveillance. They are trying to build a case to have me legally declared senile so they can sell this house. Maya stopped arranging her files and looked at me. Her eyes went from worried to cold. It was the same look I used to see on her face in the courtroom right before she would dismantle a witness. Judge Vaughn, she said slowly, using my old title. I clerked for you for 3 years. I watched you write the defining legal opinions on RICO statutes for the circuit. I watched you stare down lawyers from the biggest firms in the country without blinking. And now, your daughter, this child, thinks she can have you declared incompetent. She laughed. It was not a happy sound. It was a sharp, dangerous sound. Oh, Judge, these children have no idea who they are dealing with, do they? No, I said. They do not. To them I am just Dad, the simple man who lives in a small house. The man Lucille was always vaguely embarrassed by. They never knew who I really was. I never wanted them to. You wanted to protect them from it, Maya finished my thought. You wanted Alicia to grow up normal. You wanted her to have a life separate from Judge Vaughn the Hammer. You gave her the gift of obscurity, and now she is trying to use that gift to destroy you. She was right. I had built this entire identity, this quiet, humble life as a shield. I had seen what power and money did to other families in my line of work. I had seen heirs grow up weak, entitled, and cruel. I did not want that for Alicia, so I gave her this, a father she thought was average. They see me as an obstacle, Maya, a simple, confused old man who is in the way of their money. Maya opened her laptop. It was thin black and looked like it belonged in a government agency. All right, let's see how fast they're moving. She typed silently for a few minutes. The only sound in the room was the click-clack of the keys. I watched her face, her brow furrowed. Okay, Kevin Harris at the bank was right. They are moving fast, but oh no. What is it? She turned the laptop screen toward me. They already did it, Judge. They filed. I looked at the screen. It was the Fulton County Probate Court e-filing system. And there it was. Case number 2025 CV 889, Manning v. Vaughn, petition for emergency guardianship and conservatorship. They filed it this afternoon, Maya said, her voice tight with anger. Right after Trevor called the bank, they used the failed transfer as evidence. I scrolled down reading the legal language, and then I saw the attached affidavit, signed by Alicia Vaughn Manning. It was all there. My father has been exhibiting deeply erratic behavior. He is forgetful, often forgetting to eat. He has become paranoid, accusing us of things we have not done. He is a danger to himself. He is mismanaging his finances to a catastrophic degree. Catastrophic. But the worst part is this, Maya said, pointing to another line. They filed for an ex parte hearing. They were trying to get a temporary order against you without you even being there. Did they get it? No, she said. The clerk must have recognized the name, or maybe the judge is just competent. It was denied. But a formal hearing has been set 2 weeks from today, Fulton County Courthouse, Courtroom 5B. They are not playing judge. They are coming for everything. I leaned back in my chair. 2 weeks. They had given me 2 weeks to prepare for my own execution. They had filed legal documents claiming I was insane, my own daughter. I looked at Maya. She was watching me, waiting for the explosion, waiting for the old judge to start shouting orders to demand she file 100 counter motions. Instead, I smiled. It was a small smile, just the corner of my mouth, but it was real. Judge, Maya asked, confused, did you hear me? They are trying to have you legally stripped of your rights. I heard you, counselor, I said. They are trying, and they are using my erratic behavior and financial mismanagement as their proof. Yes, we need to respond immediately. We will file a motion to dismiss citing malicious prosecution. We will file for sanctions against their attorney. I held up my hand. No. Maya stopped. No. What do you mean, no? We are not going to file a response, I said. Judge, that is legal suicide. If we do not respond to the petition, they will win by default. The judge will have no choice but to grant the guardianship. No, he will not, I said, because I will appear at that hearing. But we are not going to respond on paper. We are not going to show them our hand. We are not going to give their lawyer anything to prepare for. I leaned forward. They have filed a petition claiming I am a confused, erratic, incompetent old man who cannot manage his own affairs. Correct, Maya said, still wary. Then, for the next 2 weeks, that is exactly what I am going to be. Maya's eyes widened as she finally understood. Oh, Judge, oh no, you are not. I am. I said. They think I am weak, fine. They think I am confused, perfect. They think I am poor, even better. I want them to walk into that courtroom in 2 weeks, so full of confidence, so arrogant, that they do not even bother to look at the man sitting across from them. You are going to let them build their entire case, she whispered, a slow smile spreading across her face. You are going to give them the rope, and I am going to let them tie their own noose, I finished. Now, counselor, tell me everything you have on Trevor Manning. Every dirty secret, every late payment, every offshore account he thinks no one knows about. I want it all. The time for being simple is over. The day after Trevor's visit about the missed doctor's appointment, the final escalation began. It was no longer about suggestions or paper trails. It was about acceleration. I was in the living room, supposedly staring at a blank television screen, when Alicia let herself in. She did not knock anymore. They had stopped knocking. They were already treating my house like their property, just waiting for the old tenant to be evicted. Dad. Her voice was sickly sweet. It was the voice she used when she wanted something as a child. It was the voice I now knew meant danger. She came into the living room holding a Tupperware container. I brought you something. I know you have not been eating well. I looked up, feigning confusion. Alicia, what a surprise. She smiled, sitting next to me. I made your favorite, she said, opening the lid. The smell hit me. It was supposed to be red beans and rice. My red beans and rice. The dish of my childhood in New Orleans. The dish I taught Lucille how to make, though she always complained it was too simple. The dish I made for Alicia every year on her birthday. It smelled almost right. The savory scent of sausage and thyme was there. But underneath it, faint and sharp, was something else. Something chemical. The smell of bitter almonds. My blood turned to ice. In my 40 years on the bench, I had seen toxicology reports. I knew that smell. It was not a flavor. It was a warning. They were not just building a case. They were accelerating the timeline. They were done waiting for me to be declared incompetent. They were moving on to deceased. Oh, baby girl, I said, my voice thick with fake emotion. You made this for me. Of course, Dad. I used your recipe. I just want to see you eat. You look so thin. Her eyes were wide, waiting, watching. This was the test. If I refused, I was suspicious. If I ate, I was dead. I took the fork she offered. My hand, which I had to force to shake, moved toward the container. It smells wonderful, I said. I took a small bite, just a few grains of rice. I moved it around my mouth, careful not to swallow, letting it sit under my tongue. The chemical taste was undeniable, burning slightly. How is it? She asked, leaning in. I swallowed. I forced it down my entire body, screaming in protest. It's perfect, Alicia, just like I remember. I took another small bite, and another. See? She said, relaxing slightly. You just needed a good home-cooked meal. I think I need some water, baby girl. My throat is a little dry. Of course, Dad. She stood up and went to the kitchen. The second she turned the corner, I spat the contents of my mouth into the napkin I had hidden in my palm. I quickly scooped another full spoonful from the container, wrapped it tightly in the napkin, and shoved the small damp package deep into the pocket of my housecoat. When she returned with a glass of water, I was wiping my mouth. Thank you, dear. That was so good. I took a long drink, rinsing my mouth, praying I had not ingested enough to do real harm. You should rest, Dad, she said, taking the container. I'll leave the rest in the fridge for you. You can have it for dinner. Yes, I whispered. I think I will. I am very sleepy all of a sudden. This seemed to please her. That's good. A nap will do you good. I will see you tomorrow. She kissed my forehead. Her lips felt like ice. I watched her leave. I listened for the click of the front door. I ran to the bathroom and forced myself to vomit, rinsing my mouth again and again until the bitter almond taste was gone. I was shaking, not from confusion, but from a pure, cold rage. I went to the refrigerator. There it was. A Tupperware full of my favorite dish meant to be my last meal. I carefully poured the entire contents into a plastic freezer bag. Then I put the empty container in the sink. I sat at the kitchen table, the small damp napkin from my pocket in front of me, alongside the new freezer bag. Evidence. This was no longer a case for the probate court. This was attempted murder. I called Maya. She answered on the first ring. Judge, Are you okay? She tried to poison me, Maya, I said, my voice flat. Red beans and rice. Smells like almonds. I have a sample from my mouth and the rest of the batch from the fridge. There was a long silence. When Maya spoke, her voice was not the voice of a lawyer. It was the voice of a predator. Do not move, Judge. Do not drink the water. Do not touch anything else. I am sending a private courier to your back door right now. He will have a secure kit. Give him both samples. I am having my lab run a full tox screen tonight. And Julius? Yes. They just lost. They just do not know it yet. The courier came and went silent as a ghost. The samples were gone. I spent the next hour cleaning my kitchen, removing any trace of what had happened. I had just sat down, my heart finally slowing to a normal rhythm when the doorbell rang. This time it was sharp official. I looked through the peephole. A woman I did not recognize. She was in a simple blouse and skirt carrying a clipboard. I opened the door, putting on my confused face. Yes, can I help you? Mr. Julius Vaughn, she asked. She had kind eyes, but they were sharp. They were trained to see things. I think so. Yes, that is me. My name is Mrs. Gable. I am with Fulton County Elder Watch. We received a call from a concerned neighbor that you might be in some distress. May I come in for a moment? A concerned neighbor. Trevor's words. The trap was sprung. Oh dear, I said, shuffling back. I was not expecting company. The house is a mess. That is quite all right, Mr. Vaughn. This is not a formal inspection, just a wellness check. She stepped inside. Her eyes immediately landed on the pile of newspapers I had left by the door, the unwashed coffee cups in the sink. I was giving her the set dressing she expected. Have you eaten today, sir? She asked, gently opening her clipboard. Eaten. I looked at the clock. It was almost 4 p.m. My daughter, Alicia, she brought some rice. Yes, it was very good. That is good, Mrs. Gable said, making a note. And how are you feeling? Your neighbor mentioned you seemed disoriented lately. I get tired, I said, sitting heavily on the couch. Sometimes I forget things. This morning, I could not find my electric bill, and my daughter, she found it, in the freezer. I let my voice crack a performance of shame. Mrs. Gable's expression softened with pity. This was exactly what Alicia wanted her to see. That happens sometimes, Mr. Vaughn. Have you spoken to a doctor about these memory lapses? A doctor? I asked, looking up in fake panic. Trevor, my son-in-law, he said I missed an appointment. A big appointment. But I do not remember making one. He said I begged him to. Did I? I leaned forward, grabbing her arm. Am I sick, miss? They keep saying I am sick. Mrs. Gable gently patted my hand. I am not a doctor, Mr. Vaughn, but it does sound like you are under a lot of stress. Your family, Alicia and Trevor, they seem very worried about you. They're good children, I whispered. They want me to move. To a home, Willow Creek Estates. It has a golf simulator. I do not play golf. I see, she said, making another note. They say I am a danger to myself. I continued, letting the panic rise in my voice. They say I am erratic. Am I erratic? I do not feel erratic. Mr. Vaughn, she said calmly, I am just here to assess the situation. It seems to me you do have a strong support system in your family. They are very involved. Involved? That was one word for it. They just want to protect you. And based on what I am seeing, the confusion, the memory lapses, it might be a good idea to listen to them. Perhaps a full evaluation by a doctor, one they can help you schedule, would be a good next step. She stood up. The checkup was complete. I had failed just as I intended. I do not want to be a burden, I whispered. Of course not, she said, walking to the door. You just let your family take care of you. They seem to know what is best. I watched her walk down the path. I knew exactly what her report would say. Subject is confused, paranoid, and suffering from memory loss. Relies heavily on family. Family's concerns appear validated. Recommend formal evaluation for guardianship. I closed the door. The pressure was now coming from all sides. The bank, the state, my own family. They were building my coffin nail by nail, and I was handing them the hammer. It was almost midnight when Maya returned. I had not moved from the kitchen table. I had just been sitting in the dark listening to the house settle. I heard her key in the back door lock the one I had given her years ago. She was the only person on earth who had one. She stepped inside and did not turn on the overhead light. She just stood in the doorway, a silhouette against the dim porch light. "They are animals," she whispered. She walked to the table and placed a single-page document in front of me. The fluorescent light from over the sink was just enough to read the heading Forensic Toxicology Report. "I have been a lawyer for 20 years, she said, her voice a low growl. "I have seen things that would make your stomach turn, but this is a new low." I picked up the paper. My hand was steady. I did not need to read the whole thing, just one word halfway down. Benzodiazepine. "A sedative," I said. It was not a question. "A sedative," she confirmed. "Not a strong dose, not enough to kill you, just enough to make you confused, enough to make you drowsy, enough to make your hands shake, enough to make you erratic." I put the paper down. "Enough to make me look exactly like the confused old man Mrs. Gable from Elder Watch reported I was." "It is a perfect cyclical piece of evidence," Maya said, her anger finally showing. "They make you sick, then they call an official to document how sick you are. They build the case brick by brick using the very symptoms they are causing. It is vicious. It is brilliant in its own sociopathic way." I nodded grimly. "So, we have them. We take this to the police. We report the poisoning." "No." I looked up. Maya was shaking her head, her face pale. "No, Judge. This is not the real problem." She tapped the lab report with her fingernail. "This is just amateur. This is the symptom. The disease is what I found next." She sat down opposite me. "I told you they were sloppy. I did not realize they were also desperate. I ran a full background check on Trevor Manning, not the public credit report, I mean a real one. I made some calls. I called in favors I was saving for my own retirement." "Get to it, counselor," I said. "Trevor's real estate development company, Manning Luxury Properties. It is a shell Julius. It is a ghost. It has not built a single verifiable property in 3 years." "So he is just in debt," I said. "He is worse than in debt," she replied. "He is running a classic Ponzi scheme. He has been taking massive investments from out-of-state clients, showing them pictures of developments that do not exist. He uses the new investors' money to pay off the old ones who start asking questions. He is a con man. A con man who married my daughter." I said the words tasting like ash. "A federal con man," Maya corrected me. "And he just got caught. The FBI's Atlanta field office has an active, ongoing investigation into him for wire fraud. They have been building a case for 6 months. They are just weeks away from an indictment." She let that sink in. The little kitchen was silent. "He is not just in debt, Judge," she said, leaning forward. "He is facing a 20-year federal prison sentence. He is completely, utterly ruined." The pieces began to click into place. The haste, the carelessness, the escalation from manipulation to this. "Unless," I whispered, "he can make the case go away." "Exactly," Maya said. "Unless he can pay back the investors he defrauded before the indictment comes down. He needs money, a lot of money, and he needs it now. He needs your money. That $25,000 was not a test, it was a lifeline." "He needs the house," I said. "He needs everything," she countered. "The house, the savings, every penny you have. This is not about greed anymore, Julius. This is not about Alicia wanting a bigger allowance or a nicer car. This is about a desperate criminal trying to stay out of a supermax prison. That is why they filed the petition. That is why they tried to poison you. They are out of time. They cannot wait for you to be declared incompetent. They need you gone." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out into the dark, quiet street. My simple, humble street. I had chosen this life to escape the sharks, and I had ended up raising one. "He is a rat trapped in a corner," I said, "and he is willing to chew off his own leg to get out, or in this case, mine." "They are more dangerous than we thought," Maya said from the table. "A man facing federal time has nothing left to lose." I turned from the window. The confused old man was gone. The fog of my performance had lifted even for me. I felt a cold clarity I had not felt since I put on the robe. He may have nothing to lose, Maya, but he has no idea who he is up against. We need to call the local police, she said, gathering her papers. We give them the tox report. We report the attempted poisoning. No, she stopped. No, Judge. They are actively trying to kill you. Local police will just arrest Alicia, I said. It becomes a messy public domestic dispute. Trevor will paint her as unstable acting alone. He will walk away free and clear. No, if he is being investigated by the feds, we will use the feds. Judge, we cannot just call the FBI and tell them to look at your son-in-law's probate case. I smiled. It was not a nice smile. Oh, yes, we can. You know what I did before I was appointed to the bench. You were a U.S. attorney, she said. Before that, back in the 70s, I was a federal prosecutor in the Department of Justice's new Public Integrity section. We were the wolves, Maya. We were the ones they sent in when the local offices were too corrupt or too scared to clean up their own cities. I walked over to my bookshelf. It was filled with old, dusty law books, books Alicia just saw as old. I reached behind a row of Georgia legal code and pulled out a single leather-bound volume. It had no title on the spine. I blew a cloud of dust off the cover and laid it on the table. I wrote the book on it, I said. Literally. She read the gold leaf title embossed on the cover, The Atlanta Protocols, A Federal Prosecutor's Guide to Anti-Corruption and RICO Investigations, by Julius A. Vaughn. I wrote this manual for the new task force here in Atlanta, I said. I trained the first class of agents they sent down from Quantico. I taught them how to build a case, how to follow the money, and how to take down men just like Trevor. I looked at Maya. Her eyes were wide. Do you know who the special agent in charge of the Atlanta FBI field office is? The man who is at this very moment running the wire fraud investigation into Trevor Manning? Who? She whispered. A young rookie agent I took right out of training, a man I mentored for 10 years. His name is David Markham, and he owes me a phone call. I flipped open my old black phone. Trior thinks he is fighting a confused old man in a rundown house. He is about to find out he is fighting the man who trained the very people who are building a cage for him. This is not a probate case anymore, counselor, I said, dialing the number from memory. This is a federal operation. I sat in the dark kitchen. The only light came from the small glowing screen of Maya's laptop. The toxicology report was stark. It was clinical. Benzodiazepine. They just lost, she had whispered. They just do not know it yet. I looked at her. He is not just a greedy developer, Maya. He is facing federal time. A man like that, he is not just a rat. He is a rabid dog. He will not stop. He cannot stop. So we do not call the local police, she said, understanding immediately. We go over their heads. I nodded. I reached into the pocket of my old housecoat and pulled out the flip phone, the one I kept charged but never used. It is time to make the call, I said. Maya watched me. She knew what this meant. She knew this was the part of my life I had buried. I flipped open the phone. I dialed the 10-digit number from memory, a private line. It bypassed secretaries, assistants, and gatekeepers. It rang once, twice. A sharp alert voice answered. Markham. David, I said. It is Julius Vaughn. There was a sudden sharp silence on the other end. I could hear the muffled sound of a door closing, the hum of an office disappearing. Judge! David Markham's voice was different now. The sharpness was gone, replaced with a deep, immediate respect. Sir, is everything all right? It has been years. I am fine, David. I am sorry to call you this late. I hear the U.S. Attorney's office is keeping you busy. Sir, for you I am never too busy. What is it? What do you need? I took a breath. I need a favor. I hear your office is running an investigation. Wire fraud, a Ponzi scheme, a developer named Trevor Manning. The silence on the line was electric. This was not a public case. It was sealed. Judge, he said, his voice careful, I cannot confirm the targets of an active federal investigation. You do not have to confirm it, David, I said, my voice cold. I am confirming it for you. He is my son-in-law, and he is in my house. I heard a sharp intake of breath. Oh no, Judge, I am so sorry. Save the apologies, I said. I need your case file on him, everything you have. The wiretaps, the bank records, the investor complaints. I need it tonight. Judge. Sir, you know I cannot do that. That is highly illegal. That is evidence in a sealed case. I let the silence sit for a moment. David, do you remember 1998, a young prosecutor full of fire who made a mistake with a witness, an internal affairs investigation that just disappeared? The silence on the other end was heavy. Yes, sir, he finally whispered. I remember. I am cashing in that chip, I said. This man, Trevor Manning, he is not just defrauding investors. He is actively conspiring with my daughter to have me declared incompetent so they can steal my assets. They tried to poison me tonight. He what? Markham's voice was no longer that of a lawyer. It was the voice of a hunter. The sample is already at the lab. Maya Thompson is handling it. But they have filed in probate court. The hearing is in 2 weeks. I need your file, David. I need the ammunition. I am not going to be taken down by a C-list con man and my own ungrateful child. You will have it, Markham said, all hesitation gone. A secured courier will be at your back door in 1 hour. We will move on him, Judge. I will have him arrested tonight. No, I said, and this was the most important part. You will do nothing. You will wait. Let him think he is winning. Let him walk right into that probate hearing. I want him arrogant. I want him confident. I want him to perjure himself fully in front of another judge. Then, we spring the trap. Can you wait? There was a long pause. I could hear him thinking. For you, Judge, I will give you until the gavel drops. I snapped the phone shut. 2 days later they came, the final visit. I was in my housecoat, the one with the coffee stain. The house was a mess, just as I had left it. I had been practicing. My hand had a slight persistent tremor. I had not slept. I looked broken. The doorbell rang. I shuffled to the door. There they were, Alicia and Trevor. They were not smiling. They were wearing dark funereal clothes, their faces set in masks of solemn false concern. They looked like they were coming to visit a dying relative. Dad, Alicia said, her voice dripping with pity. Can we come in? I nodded, shuffling back. Alicia, Trevor, I was not expecting you. They walked in. Trevor glanced at the pile of junk mail I had left on the floor, the full freezer bag of trash I had forgotten to take out. He exchanged a look with Alicia. They were winning. Julius, Trevor said, sitting on the edge of the couch, declining to lean back. We need to talk. This has gone too far. Too far, I asked, my voice weak. Dad, we spoke to Mrs. Gable, Alicia said, sitting next to him. From the county. From Elder Watch. I looked up, feigning panic. The lady with the clipboard. Yes, Dad. She told us everything. About the bill, in the freezer, about how you have not been eating, about your confusion. Trevor sighed, the heavy theatrical sound of a man burdened. And we had to tell her about the missed neurologist appointment, Julius. The one you begged me to make. The one you forgot. I am so sorry, I whispered, looking at my hands. I do not remember. I am so tired. Alicia's voice turned cold. This is over, Dad. We have the hearing on Friday. We will win. The judge will see Mrs. Gable's report. He will see Dr. Allister's no-show invoice. He will see the security flags from the bank. They will grant the guardianship. Trevor and I will be in control. Or, Trevor said, sliding a thick stack of papers onto the coffee table, we can avoid all that. Avoid the public embarrassment. Avoid having your name dragged through the mud. I stared at the papers. What is it? This is the easy way, Trevor said. It is a full voluntary transfer of assets to Alicia. It gives her power of attorney. It sells this house to my development company for $1. You sign this, and we will cancel the hearing. We will tear up Mrs. Gable's report. We will tell the bank it was all a misunderstanding. And we will let you stay here. You will just be retired. We will handle the bills. We will handle everything. Alicia leaned in. It is your last chance, Dad. Sign the papers. Or we will see you in court, and I promise you, you will lose. I looked at the papers. I looked at Alicia's hard, merciless eyes. I looked at Trevor's smug, reptilian smile. They had me, the social worker, the doctor, the bank, the failed poisoning which they did not even know I knew about. They had built their case. I let out a long, slow, defeated sigh. You are right, I whispered. I am tired. I am so tired of fighting. Alicia's face flooded with relief. She almost smiled. So, you will sign? I put my trembling hand on the stack of papers, and then I pushed them back. No. Trevor's smile vanished. What? I will not sign, I said, my voice barely audible. You said there was a hearing on Friday. Alicia stood up, her face flushing with rage. Dad, are you not listening? We will destroy you in that hearing. We will prove you are insane. Then, you will have to do that. I stood up shaky, pulling my old housecoat around me. I want to tell the judge my side. He will understand. Trevor and Alicia stared at each other. They could not believe it. He was actually going to show up. He was going to fight. And then they burst out laughing. It was not a small laugh. It was a full, deep, cruel laugh. Trevor had to wipe a tear from his eye. Oh, Julius, he gasped, catching his breath. You want to tell the judge you looking like this? You the man who puts his mail in the freezer and forgets his own doctor? Oh, this is better than we hoped. Alicia shook her head, still giggling. Fine. Be stubborn. But when that gavel falls, do not say we did not warn you. It will be public. Everyone will know you lost your mind. I will take my chances, I said. I will see you. I will see you in court. They left. I listened to them laughing all the way down the front path. They were giddy with victory. They thought I had just handed them the final definitive proof, a confused, stubborn old man rejecting help, demanding a public hearing that he was guaranteed to lose. They did not know that I wanted the hearing. I needed the hearing because I was not coming to that courtroom as Dad. I was coming as the Hammer. The night before the hearing was the longest night of my life. I sat in the dark living room. The street outside was quiet. Even the crickets seemed to be holding their breath. I did not turn on the lamps. I just sat in my old armchair, the one with the springs that creaked, the one Lucille always threatened to throw out. My house was no longer a sanctuary. It was a stage. It was a trap. And I was the bait. I picked up the small silver-framed photograph from the side table. It was Lucille. She was younger, vibrant, laughing at some party I probably had not wanted to attend. She was beautiful. Her eyes were bright, and she wore a diamond necklace that had cost a fortune. She loved that necklace. She loved what it represented. I ran my thumb over the glass. Oh, Lou, I whispered to the empty room. You did this. You did this to her. I know you loved her. You loved her in a way that was blinding. You wanted to give her everything you never had and everything you did have. You wanted to wrap her in cotton wool to protect her from every scrape, every disappointment, every consequence. You thought I was hard. You thought I was cold. I remember our fights. Quiet, whispered fights in the dead of night so Alicia would not hear. Why do you make her work for her allowance, Julius? We are not poor. She needs to know what $1 is worth, Lou. She needs to build her own strength. Strength. She is a child. Let her be a child. Why must you always be the Hammer? I looked at the photograph. You see, Lou, I was not the Hammer enough. Not with her. I let you win. I let you soften her, mold her, spoil her. You gave her money behind my back every time I said no. You taught her that rules were for other people. You taught her that Dad was just the stubborn old man who did not understand, and that Mom would always be there to fix it with a check. I set the picture down. My hands were perfectly steady. You taught her that this life I chose was an embarrassment, a failure. You taught her to be ashamed of me. You never let her see the other man, the one who built the fortune you loved spending, the one the world respected, the one who earned your comfort. I stood up and walked to the window. The black BMW was not there tonight. Of course not. They thought the work was done. They thought I was a broken old man ready to be put down. Well, Lou, you protected her from me, from the truth. You raised a child who believes her father is a weak, incompetent fool. You raised a child who thinks she can have her own father drugged, committed, and erased just to get her hands on a house, just to pay her criminal husband's debts. I felt a deep, profound sadness. Not for me, for Alicia. She had been given every advantage, every opportunity, and she had this, a common greedy and stupid criminal. You always wanted more for her, Lou, I whispered to the photograph across the room. You wanted her to be a princess, but you forgot to teach her how to be a person. You taught her entitlement but not empathy. You gave her privilege but not character. I walked to my closet. I pushed aside the faded sweaters and old cardigans. I reached to the very back, behind a row of old suits I never wore. I pulled out a heavy, dark garment bag. I unzipped it. You spoiled her, Lou, I said, my voice cold. You made her weak. You made her this monster. I pulled out the heavy black robe, my official robe, the one I had worn on the federal bench for 25 years. It still smelled faintly of old paper and the cedar chest I kept it in. And now, I have to fix it. I laid the robe out on my bed. It looked enormous in the small room. It looked like a different world, a world of consequence, a world of truth. I am sorry, my love. I truly am. I am sorry I let you do this to our daughter. I am sorry I was too tired, too quiet, too simple. But that ends tomorrow. I went into the bathroom and looked in the mirror. I saw the old man they saw. Gray hair, wrinkles, the faded, worn-out housecoat. This is who they think I am, I said to my reflection. Tomorrow they meet her father, the real one. Tomorrow Alicia finally meets Judge Julius Vaughn. I put my hands on the sink. The rage was there, but it was not hot. It was a block of ice, pure and solid. It was the focused, clarifying anger that had been my oldest and truest friend in every courtroom I ever commanded. You wanted her to have the world, Lou. Instead, tomorrow, I am going to have to give her the one thing you never did. I leaned in close to the mirror. Justice. I stood in the quiet of my bedroom. The only light came from the street, casting long shadows that danced on the faded wallpaper. This room was a monument to the simple, forgotten man I had chosen to become. A simple iron-frame bed, a worn dresser that had been my father's, and a closet. I walked toward it. My hand, which had been shaking for 2 weeks for their benefit, was now perfectly steady. I grasped the cheap brass knob. I pulled the door open. The smell of cedar and mothballs rushed out, a scent from a different life. I pushed aside the clothes of Julius Vaughn, the old man, the faded flannel shirts Alicia pitied, the worn-out cardigans she despised, the single $50 suit I had planned to wear to court tomorrow, the suit I would wear as the bait. And in the very back, hidden behind a false panel I had installed myself 30 years ago, was a heavy, dark garment bag. It was sealed. I reached in and pulled it out. It was heavy. I laid it on the bed and pulled the long zipper down. The sound cut the absolute silence of the house. There it was. My other life. My real life. The heavy black wool was pristine. It had been cleaned and preserved, waiting. I reached in and touched the fabric. It was not just cloth. It was authority. It was the weight of 40 years of decisions. Decisions that had built careers and ended them. Decisions that had sent men to prison for the rest of their natural lives. Decisions that had shaped the law. I lifted it out. My robe. My federal judge's robe. It was not a costume. It was an armor. It was the skin I had shed when Lucille died, thinking I was done with that world, thinking I could finally rest. I laid the robe across my bed. It was a dark shadow on the faded quilt, a piece of a different universe. This robe was who I am. Then I turned to the dresser. Alicia and Trevor, in their arrogant, greedy rush, had never looked. They had come into my house, into my room, and seen only what they wanted to see. They saw an old man's junk. They saw antiques to be sold, a life to be liquidated. They never saw the pictures. They were not hidden. They were just sitting there quiet. I picked up the first one, a simple black frame. The glass was old. The photo was black and white. It was 1968, Selma. I was a young man, barely 21. My face was thin, angry, and full of a fire that I thought had long since burned out. I was marching. My arm was linked with the man next to me, and walking just ahead of us, his hand raised, talking, always talking, was Dr. King, Martin. I was just a law student, then a boy from the 9th Ward who had gotten a scholarship and a taste for justice. He had looked at me that day, right before we crossed the bridge. He had seen the fear in my eyes, and he had nodded. He did not say a word, but his eyes said, "Be steady. The law is on our side even if the men holding the bats are not." I stared at that photograph. I stared at the fire in that young man's eyes. My eyes. Alicia thought I was simple. She thought I was weak. She thought I was confused. She had no idea that I had stood shoulder to shoulder with giants. She had no idea that I had faced down men who carried hatred in their hearts and weapons in their hands. And she thought she could scare me. She thought she could bully me with a forged doctor's note and a nasty social worker's report. She did not know her own history. She did not know my history. I put the photo down my hand steady and picked up the other one. This one was in color. It was much later. I was in the Oval Office. I was not young anymore. My hair was gray at the temples. My back was straight as a steel rod. I was not marching. I was standing, and I was smiling. On my right, I was shaking hands with the president. On my left, another former president was laughing, his hand on my shoulder. The three of us. We were not friends. We were colleagues. We were men who understood the weight of the Constitution, men who understood what true power was. I had advised them. I had argued with them. I had served my country at their request in ways the public would never know. This was the man I had hidden from my family. I hid this man, this legacy, this power, because I did not want to raise a child like Alicia. I did not want to raise a child who felt entitled to the world because her father was a big man. I wanted to raise a daughter who would build her own world. And Lucille, God rest her soul, had undone it all. She had taught Alicia that the world was hers for the taking. She had taught her that she deserved the Oval Office without ever having to march in Selma. I looked from the robe to the photos. This was my life. This was my heritage. This was the truth. Alicia and Trevor saw an old man in a cheap house. They saw a victim. They saw an asset to be liquidated. They did not see the mind that had helped shape the law of the land. They did not see the man who still had the private unlisted numbers of senators, generals, and yes, federal prosecutors saved in his old flip phone. They did not see the hammer. I hung the heavy black robe on the back of my bedroom door. It dominated the small room. It changed the very air. Tomorrow I would not be wearing the $50 suit. I would not be shuffling. I would not be confused. Tomorrow I would put on my armor. I would go to war, and I would introduce my daughter finally to her father. The kitchen felt heavy in the 9 p.m. quiet. I had been sitting at the table for an hour just staring at the linoleum pattern when I heard the quiet 2-tap knock on the back door. I opened it and Maya Thompson slipped inside. She did not just bring her laptop this time. She was carrying a thin, locked aluminum briefcase. Her face was grim. "Judge," she said. It was not a greeting, it was a call to arms. "Counselor," I replied, nodding her toward the table. She set the briefcase down and clicked the latches. "It is done. All of it." She did not open it immediately. Instead, she looked at me. Really looked at me, taking in the stained housecoat and the gray stubble I had purposefully let grow for 3 days. "You look like hell, Julius," she said. It was the highest compliment she could pay me. "That is the idea," I said. "What did you bring me?" "The last piece of your costume," she said. She opened the case. Inside, nestled next to a stack of legal files, was a necktie. It was a hideous, shimmering polyester tie, a nauseating pattern of brown and orange diamonds. It looked like something from a bargain bin in 1974. "It is perfect," I said, taking it. It felt slick and cheap in my hand. "It clashes with the $50 suit." Maya noted a rare cold smile playing on her lips. "It screams dementia. You wear this and their lawyer will not even bother to cross-examine you. He will just pity you." "Good," I said, laying the tie on the counter. "Now, the venue." Maya pulled out her tablet. "This is where it gets interesting. The case is assigned. Courtroom 5B. The presiding judge is Robert Prentice." I let myself smile. Prentice. Bobby Prentice. You know him, she stated. I remember him, I corrected. He clerked for old Judge Gideon back in the 90s, a smart kid, ambitious. But he was terrified of me, absolutely terrified. I argued a motion in Gideon's chambers once, and I think young Bobby spilled an entire cup of coffee on his lap. He used to misfile briefs just to avoid my arguments. Maya nodded, tapping the screen. He is not a kid anymore, Judge. He is the senior judge of the probate division. And according to my research, he still tells stories about you at bar association dinners. He idolizes you. When he sees the man who wrote the book on RICO statutes sitting there in that tie, looking like a man who cannot find his own electric bill, I finished. It will do more than shatter his worldview. It will make him angry, and he will need someone to blame. He will want to blame them, Maya said. It is the perfect setup. He will be personally, professionally, and emotionally offended on your behalf. Good. That is the arena, I said. Now, the trap. Markham. David Markham is, Maya paused, searching for the word enthusiastic. He said, and I quote, "We are going to let the judge set the hook, and then my office will reel the fish into the boat." She continued. The U.S. Attorney's Office is officially sending 2 observers to the hearing tomorrow. They will be in the gallery, dark suits, watching. They are not observers, I said. No, Maya agreed. They are not. They are federal marshals. They are there for one reason and one reason only, to ensure Mr. Trevor Manning does not leave the courtroom once the proceedings are concluded. The indictment, it is sealed and ready, she said. Markham has it on his desk. The moment Judge Prentice strikes the gavel on this guardianship case, Markham will file the unseal order. Trevor Manning will be arrested for wire fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering before he can even figure out which way the elevator is. I nodded. It was clean. It was precise. It was final. And the lab report, I asked. The last piece. The personal one. Maya's face hardened. She reached into the briefcase and pulled out the toxicology report. She did not hand it to me. She just held it. Benzodiazepine, a low-grade sedative. Exactly what you smelled. It was not enough to kill you. It was just enough to create the symptoms, to make you confused, to make you shake, to make you the man they needed you to be for that social worker. I looked at the paper. Exhibit A, I said. We will not lead with it, Maya said. We will let them lie first. We will let Alicia get on the stand and cry about how she has to cook for her poor, confused father. We will let Trevor talk about your missed appointments. We will let their lawyer paint a picture of a man at the end of his life, and then we will show them the poison. Everything is in position, I murmured. Maya closed the briefcase. The sharp click echoed in the small kitchen. She walked to the back door, then paused, her hand on the knob. Julius, are you ready? This is your daughter. I looked around the room. The faded wallpaper, the cracked linoleum, the stage where I had played the fool. I thought of Lucille and how she had protected Alicia from every hard truth, every consequence. I thought of Alicia's giggling laugh as she walked out that door thinking she had won. She stopped being my daughter when she put my bill in the freezer. I said, my voice flat. She stopped being my daughter when she handed me that Tupperware container. Tomorrow she is not my family. She is the opposing party, and I have never in my entire career lost to an opposing party who was this arrogant and this stupid. Maya nodded once. Good night, Judge. I will see you in court. She was gone. I was alone again. I picked up the hideous polyester tie. I slowly, clumsily began to practice a fumbling, terrible-looking knot. The performance had to be perfect right up until the very end. The next morning, I did not take a cab. I took the bus. I sat between a woman with a crying baby and a young man listening to music so loud I could feel the beat vibrating in my chest. I wanted to arrive the way they expected me to, as a man who could not afford a car. The Fulton County Probate Court is not the federal courthouse. There is no gleaming marble, no grand columns, no silent halls of power. It is a loud, crowded, functional building in downtown Atlanta. It smells of stale coffee, floor wax, and desperation. It is where wills are broken, where families come to fight over what is left of their dead. It was the perfect, grubby stage for what was about to happen. I shuffled through the metal detector. I had to empty my pockets. A loose handful of change, a wadded-up handkerchief, my old flip phone. The security guard looked at me with bored pity, waved me through. I was just another sad old story. I found courtroom 5B. It was small. The air was thick and hot. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The wooden benches were hard-scarred with the initials of people who had sat here before waiting for their lives to be decided. I looked for my name on the docket posted outside the door. Manning v. Vaughn, 9:30 a.m. Petition for guardianship. There I was, sandwiched between a dispute over a dry cleaning business and a challenge to a will, just another piece of legal garbage to be processed. I pushed the heavy door open and stepped inside. They were already there, at the plaintiff's table. Alicia, Trevor, and a lawyer I did not recognize, a young slick man in a suit that was too tight and too shiny. He looked like he got his law degree from a billboard. Trevor looked sharp. His suit was perfect. His hair was perfectly coiffed. He was checking his phone, looking important. Alicia, she looked radiant. She was not dressed for a somber court hearing. She was dressed for a victory party. A bright blue dress. Full makeup. She looked like she was on her way to a high-dollar brunch. And then there was me. I stood at the back of the courtroom for a moment, letting them see me. I wore the $50 suit. It was a size too big, hanging off my shoulders. And I wore the tie. The hideous polyester tie Maya had given me, the one with the brown and orange diamonds. I had practiced the knot in the mirror for an hour, making sure it was crooked, making sure it was too loose around my neck. I had not shaved in 3 days. My hand, as I held my old worn-out hat, had a slight practiced tremor. I looked in every way like the man they had described to the social worker, a confused, incompetent, pathetic old man who was a danger to himself. Alicia saw me first. Her eyes widened. And then she giggled. It was not a small sound. It was a sharp, clear, unmistakable giggle. She quickly covered her mouth with her hand, but her shoulders were shaking. She leaned over and whispered something in Trevor's ear. Trevor looked up. His eyes met mine across the small, stuffy room. He did not look angry. He did not look ashamed. He looked bored. He just shook his head, a slow, dismissive gesture. Look at this sad old fool. Then he looked away back at his phone as if I were not even worth his attention. He was done with me. Their lawyer saw the exchange. He looked at me, taking in my crooked tie, my rumpled suit, my shaking hand. And he smiled. A smug, confident smile. This was not a case. This was a rubber stamp, an easy win. He probably had lunch reservations at noon. I felt the eyes of the other people in the gallery on me. They saw what Alicia and Trevor saw, the family disappointment, the crazy old relative, the burden. I took a deep breath. I let the humiliation wash over me. I let it settle on my shoulders like a shroud. I needed this. I needed to feel their contempt full and unfiltered. I needed to remember exactly why I was here. I thought of Lucille and how she would have been mortified, ashamed of me. I thought of the young man in the photo marching in Selma, full of fire. I thought of the man in the Oval Office advising presidents. And then I looked at my daughter, who was still trying to hide her smile behind her hand. Good, I thought. Laugh. Be confident. Be arrogant. I shuffled forward, my old shoes scuffing the floor. I did not go to the plaintiff's table. I walked to the other side. The respondent's table. It was empty. I sat down, alone. I put my hat on the table in front of me. I clasped my trembling hands on top of it. I looked straight ahead at the empty judge's bench. I did not look at them again. I just waited. I heard Alicia whisper again. He is all alone. He did not even get a lawyer. This is perfect. I heard Trevor chuckle. I told you, baby. He is done. Just sign the papers, get the money, and we can finally move on. The bailiff, a heavy man with a tired face, looked at me, then at them. He sighed. He had seen this 100 times before. All rise! He called out, his voice booming in the small room. I grabbed the table and slowly, painfully pulled myself to my feet. I let my knees tremble. The probate court of Fulton County Courtroom 5B is now in session. The Honorable Robert Prentice presiding. The door behind the bench opened. I kept my eyes down. I looked at my shaking hands. The performance was not over. It was just beginning. I heard the judge sit. I heard him rustle his papers. Good morning, his voice said. Let us call the first case, 2025 CV 889, Manning versus Vaughn, petition for guardianship. I heard the slick lawyer stand up. Good morning, Your Honor. Todd Bishop for the petitioners, Alicia Manning and Trevor Manning. Good morning, counselor, the judge replied, his voice distracted. And for the respondent, Mr. Vaughn, is he present? Yes, Your Honor. the lawyer said, his voice dripping with false pity. Mr. Vaughn he is representing himself. I see, the judge said. He sighed. This was going to be a long morning. Mr. Vaughn, would you please? He stopped. I looked up. I let my hands go still. I let the tremor stop. I let the confusion fade from my eyes. I let my back straighten. And I looked for the first time directly at the bench. Our eyes met. The blood drained from Judge Robert Prentice's face. He stared at me, his mouth opened slightly. The papers in his hand began to shake. He looked down at this case file at the name Julius Vaughn. Then he looked back up at me, at my face. And that is when he whispered it, so low that only his clerk and I could hear. My God, is that really him? The judge entered, a heavy man named Robert Prentice. I knew him, though he would not know me, not like this. He looked tired. He looked like a man who had seen too many families tear each other apart over wills and property. I pulled myself up slowly, part of the act, leaning heavily on the respondent's table. I heard my daughter Alicia let out a little tisk sound, a small puff of disgust at my weakness. Trevor and their lawyer stood up sharp and respectful for the judge, their faces a perfect mask of somber, concerned family. The lawyer, a man named Bishop, gave them a confident nod. He had this in the bag. Please be seated, Prentice said, his voice a monotone drone. He sat and opened the thick file in front of him. Calling case 2025 CV 889. The petition of Alicia and Trevor Manning for the guardianship of Julius Vaughn. He sighed, already bored. He looked at the papers, not at the people. Counselor, please state your appearance. Todd Bishop, Your Honor, for the petitioners Alicia Manning and Trevor Manning, who are present at the table. Very good, Prentice said, still not looking up. And for the respondent, Mr. Vaughn, I see here he is. He paused, flipping a page, his brow furrowing in annoyance. He is pro se representing himself. That is correct, Your Honor, Bishop said, and his voice was a slick oil of false pity. My clients are very concerned. Mr. Vaughn, he is not well. We believe his attempt to represent himself is frankly further proof of the cognitive decline outlined in our petition. I watched as Alicia dutifully dabbed a dry eye with a tissue. Trevor put a supportive hand on her back. It was a beautiful, disgusting performance. Prentice looked up from the file, his eyes scanning the respondent's table. Mr. Vaughn, would you please stand and state your name for the record? This was it. This was the moment. I put both of my hands flat on the table. I stopped the shaking. I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping loudly in the quiet room, and I stood. I did not shuffle. I did not lean on the table. I stood straight. My spine, which had been curved in feigned old age for 2 weeks, straightened to its full practiced height. I looked across the 20 feet of cheap carpet directly into the eyes of Judge Robert Prentice. I let him see me. He was in the middle of a sentence, a routine instruction. Mr. Vaughn, do you understand these proceedings? His voice trailed off. He froze. His hand, the one holding a pen, stopped moving. He stared at me. I did not say a word. I did not smile. I just held his gaze. I watched the color drain from his face. I watched his eyes widen, not just in recognition, but in a sudden cold panic. He looked down at the case file at the name Julius Vaughn. He looked back up at my face. He looked at the hideous, crooked polyester tie. He looked at the rumpled $50 suit. He looked at the 3-day stubble on my chin. And then he looked at my eyes. He knew these eyes. These were the eyes that had stared him down in Judge Gideon's chambers 25 years ago, when he was a terrified law clerk who had spilled coffee on a federal motion. These were the eyes of the man who had written the legal textbooks he had studied at Emory. The pen slipped from his fingers. It clattered loudly on the wooden bench. Alicia giggled again, a short, nervous sound. She thought I had done something senile to frighten the judge. "Oh, Dad," she whispered to Trevor. "He is completely losing it." But Prentice did not hear her. He could not hear anything. He was staring at me as if he had just seen a ghost. Then he did something that broke every rule of judicial decorum. Judge Robert Prentice, the senior judge of the probate division, stood up. He rose from his chair so quickly it almost toppled backward. The bailiff flinched his hand, moving toward his hip. "My God," Prentice whispered. The microphone on his desk was hot, and the words echoed in the silent, stuffy courtroom. He was pale. He was visibly shaking. He looked at me, at the man he and every lawyer in Atlanta knew as the Hammer. "Judge?" He stammered, his voice a choked, terrified whisper. "Judge. Vaughn. Is that really you, sir?" The entire room froze. The lawyer Bishop leaped to his feet, his face a mask of confusion. "Your Honor, I do not understand. This is the respondent Julius Vaughn. This is the man my clients are concerned about." Alicia's smile was gone. It had evaporated. Her face was blank with confusion. What did he call him, Judge? Dad, what is going on?" Trevor finally tore his eyes away from his phone. His smug, bored expression was replaced by a sudden, sharp anxiety. He stared at me, then at the terrified judge, then back at me. Prentice ignored all of them. He could not take his eyes off me. He was breathing heavily. "Sir, I apologize. I had no idea. The file—" He pointed a trembling finger at the petition on his desk, the one filled with Alicia's lies. "The file says, it says cognitive decline. It says incompetent. It says a danger to himself." He looked at Alicia and Trevor as if seeing them for the first time, not as concerned family, but as perpetrators. The gallery, the other families waiting for their cases, started whispering. "Who is that old man? Why did the judge stand up? He called him Judge." The lawyer Bishop was sweating now. The tide had turned so fast he was drowning. "Your Honor, if I may, my clients have substantial evidence. We have reports from social services. We have medical invoices." "Silence!" Prentice roared. His voice cracked high with panic and a new dawning rage. "Bailiff, approach the bench. Counselors, all counselors, approach the bench, now." Alicia was pulling on Trevor's arm. Trevor, what is happening? Why does he look like that? He is just an old man, right?" "Right." Trevor was not listening. He was staring at me. He was finally seeing me. He was seeing the man who was not in the file. I just stood there, silent. I let the panic wash over them. I let the chaos they had created finally turn and face its authors. Prentice was whispering furiously to his clerk, who was typing frantically into her computer. Get me everything you have on Judge Julius Vaughn, 11th Circuit. Now get me the U.S. Attorney's Office on the phone." Alicia's world was cracking. I could see it in her eyes. The laughter was gone, replaced by the dawning, awful realization that the pathetic old man she had mocked was someone else entirely. She looked at me, her eyes wide with a new kind of fear. "Dad?" I did not answer. I just looked at her. And for the first time in her life, she saw me. She saw the Hammer. Judge Prentice was standing. A judge does not stand for a respondent. A judge does not stand, period. The bailiff looked confused. The court reporter stopped typing. And my daughter Alicia just stared, her mouth slightly open, the giggle stillborn on her lips. Her brain could not connect what she was seeing. The judge was terrified. Her father, the fool in the crooked tie, was the source of that terror. The equation did not make sense. Their lawyer Bishop was the first to find his voice. But it was not the smooth, confident voice from before. It was a high-pitched, cracking sound. "Your Honor, are you all right? Should we take a recess?" He looked back and forth between me and the judge, his face slick with a sudden cold sweat. He thought Prentice was having a medical episode. Trevor Manning knew better. I watched him. A con man lives by reading rooms. And this room had just changed. He was not looking at the judge. He was looking at me. His bored, arrogant expression was gone. It was replaced by the dead, flat, calculating stare of an animal that has just heard the snap of a trap. He was reevaluating. He was running the numbers, and he was realizing for the first time that his math was wrong. "What?" Alicia whispered, her voice sharp with panic. She tugged on Trevor's suit jacket. "Trevor, what is happening? Why is he looking at Dad like that? What did he call him?" She turned to me, her eyes wide with confusion, not fear. Not yet. "Dad, what is going on? Do you know him? Dad?" The whispers in the gallery had turned into a loud, frantic buzz. "Who is he?" The judge stood up. "He called him Judge." Prentice was still standing, his face pale. He was looking at the petition in his hand, the one claiming I was insane, as if it were a live grenade. "Mr. Bishop," Prentice said, his voice trembling with a rage I knew all too well. It was the rage of a man who has just been made to look like a fool. "What is the meaning of this petition?" "Your Honor," Bishop said, his voice squeaking. "It is a standard guardianship petition. My clients are concerned for their father's welfare. Mr. Vaughn has been exhibiting severe cognitive decline. We have reports from social services. We have medical invoices." He was pleading. He was desperate. He was still trying to win a case that had already been lost. It was time. I put my steady, untrembling hands on the respondent's table. I stepped out from behind it. I walked into the center of the room, into the open space between the tables and the bench, and I spoke. The voice that came out of my mouth was not the weak, shuffling whisper of Julius Vaughn, the old man. It was the voice that had silenced courtrooms for 40 years. It was the voice that had passed sentence. It was the voice of the hammer. "You are correct, Judge Prentice," I said. My voice was deep. It was clear. It did not waver. It filled every corner of the small hot room. Every single person, including Alicia, flinched. "There has been," I continued, "no mistake." I looked at Robert Prentice. I gave him a short, sharp nod, the nod of a superior acknowledging an apprentice. "It has been some time, Robert. You are looking well. Marriage suits you. And I see you finally got the senior probate position you were after. Judge Gideon would be proud." Prentice actually swallowed. "Judge Vaughn, sir, I did not let him finish. I turned to face the rest of the courtroom. I faced the shocked gallery. I faced the sweating, terrified lawyer. And I faced my daughter. "For the record," I announced, my voice ringing with an authority that had been dormant for 5 years. "My name is Julius A. Vaughn." I let the name sit there. It was a name that meant something in this city, a name that meant something in the halls of justice. Alicia just stared. "Dad, what are you doing? Stop this. You are embarrassing yourself." "I am the respondent in this petition," I continued, ignoring her, "and just so Mr. Bishop and his clients are no longer confused." I looked directly at Trevor. His face was gray. "I am Julius Vaughn, retired United States federal judge for the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals." A woman in the gallery gasped. Mr. Bishop's briefcase slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a loud thud. Alicia just shook her head. "No," she whispered. "No, that is not true. That is not. You are not." She looked at me, her eyes pleading for me to go back to being the simple, confused old man she could control. "Dad? What is he talking about? You live in that house, you work, you—" Her voice trailed off. She was realizing in real time that she had no idea who I was, that she had never known. "A lie?" I asked her. "You think I am lying?" I turned back to Prentice. "Judge Prentice, do you find me to be lying?" Prentice, who had finally managed to sit back down, looked like he had been struck. No, sir, Judge Vaughn, of course not. It is an honor to have you in my courtroom. I do not understand." "You will, Robert," I said. "And I apologize for appearing in your courtroom under these unconventional circumstances, and for my attire." I gestured to the hideous crooked tie. It was part of a performance, a role I was asked to play, a role my daughter and son-in-law seemed eager for me to fill. Trevor Manning finally stood up. He was not stupid. He knew when the game was over. He knew when to fold. "Your Honor," he said, his voice shaking, "I think there has been a terrible misunderstanding. My wife and I, we were just concerned. We wish to withdraw the petition." "Sit down," Prentice roared, finding his voice at last. "You do not get to file a fraudulent, malicious petition against a sitting federal judge, even a retired one, and then just withdraw it when you get caught. Sit down." Trevor collapsed back into his chair. "Mr. Vaughn, Judge," Prentice said to me, his voice full of a new, terrible respect, "I am prepared to dismiss this case with extreme prejudice." "Do not," I said. He froze. "Sir." "Do not dismiss it," I said. "I have been summoned to this court. I am here, and I am prepared to respond to the petition. I am here to state for the record that I am of sound mind, that I am of sound body, and that I am perfectly competent to manage my own affairs. I took a step closer to the plaintiff's table, and I am also here to file a counterpetition. At that moment, the doors at the back of the courtroom opened. Maya Thompson walked in. She was not dressed in a pantsuit. She was wearing her own set of lawyer's robes, the kind one wears to argue before the Supreme Court. She was flanked by two tall men in dark suits. "Maya Thompson," she announced, "for the respondent Judge Julius Vaughn." She walked to my table and placed her aluminum briefcase on it with a loud, definitive click. "Your Honor," she said to Prentice, "we are filing a counter-petition for damages, fraud, conspiracy, and attempted assault." The room exploded. Alicia screamed, "No, Bishop, their lawyer was ashen. Your Honor, this is an ambush. We have not been served. You have now," Maya said, handing him a stack of files so thick it looked like a phone book. "And we are also filing a formal complaint against you, Mr. Bishop, with the State Bar for malicious prosecution and failure of due diligence. You should have checked who your opponent was." Bishop stared at the file as if it were on fire. "I am ready to respond, Your Honor," I said to Prentice. "The petitioners have based their case on my erratic behavior. I would like to call my first witness to explain that behavior." Prentice nodded, his eyes wide. "Mr. Vaughn, you may proceed." I turned not to the gallery but to the plaintiff's table. I looked at my daughter. Her face was a mask of white, terrified confusion. "I call Mrs. Alicia Manning to the stand." "Crazy?" Maya Thompson turned slowly, her gaze landing on Alicia for the first time. "You think this is crazy, Mrs. Manning? Let us talk about what crazy is." She walked to the respondent's table, opened her aluminum briefcase, and looked at Judge Prentice. "Your Honor, the petitioners have based their entire case on my client's cognitive decline and financial mismanagement. We would like to address those claims directly. With the court's permission, I would like to present our evidence." Judge Prentice leaned forward, his knuckles white on his gavel. "Counselor, you may proceed, and I suggest everyone in this room listen very, very carefully." Maya held up her first file. "Let us begin with financial mismanagement. The petitioner's primary proof was a failed wire transfer of $25,000. Mr. Bishop," she said, looking at the sweating lawyer, "did you or your clients bother to verify the signature on that transfer?" It was flagged by the bank," Bishop stammered, shuffling his papers. "That is proof of irregularity. It was indeed flagged," Maya agreed, her voice dripping with ice. "It was flagged because it was a forgery, a very clumsy, very arrogant forgery. I submit as Exhibit A a sworn affidavit from Kevin Harris, the branch manager of Decatur First National, detailing the attempt, and furthermore detailing the follow-up phone call he received from Mr. Trevor Manning, who tried to intimidate the bank into processing the fraudulent transfer, claiming my client, Judge Vaughn, was confused and had authorized it." Trevor leaped to his feet. "That is a lie. That is slander. I was just trying to help. He is an old man. He—" "Sit down, Mr. Manning," Prentice roared from the bench. "You will have your turn to perjure yourself. Do not do it from your seat." Alicia had sunk back into her chair. "Trevor, you called the bank," Maya continued as if they had not spoken. Her voice was a metronome ticking down. "Second, the petitioners claim erratic behavior. They have submitted a report from a social worker, a Mrs. Gable, and an invoice from a neurologist, Dr. Alistair, for a missed appointment. They claim my client is a danger to himself. They claim he is sick." She paused and her eyes found mine. "The truth, Your Honor, is that Judge Vaughn is sick, but not in the way they claim. He is sick because his daughter has been poisoning him." The courtroom exploded in a collective gasp. Alicia let out a sound I will never forget, a high-pitched, strangled wail. "No, that is not true. I just brought him food. I brought him his favorite. I was taking care of him." "Objection," Bishop shrieked, scrambling to his feet. "Your Honor, it is outrageous, slanderous. There is no proof." "Is it?" Maya asked. She pulled a single laminated document from her case. "Then I submit as Exhibit B the full toxicology report from Atlanta Forensic Lab's chain of custody verified. The sample was taken from the food my client was fed by his daughter, Alicia Manning. The contents benzodiazepine, a sedative. Not enough to kill him. Oh no, that would be too fast. Just enough to cause the very symptoms of confusion, memory loss, and shaking that they were so carefully documenting, just enough to make a perfectly healthy, competent man appear insane before a social worker. Judge Prentice stared at the report. He looked physically ill. He looked at Alicia, and his face was a mask of pure, unadulterated disgust. "Mrs. Manning, you drugged your own father." Alicia was rocking back and forth, her hands over her face. "No, Trevor said it was just a vitamin drop to help him relax, that is all. I did not know." Trevor's face was gray. "Shut up, Alicia, just shut up." "So you admit it," Bishop screamed at Trevor. "It was chaos." Prentice slammed his gavel, the sound cracking like a gunshot. "Order, order. I will have this entire room cleared. Mr. Bishop, you will sit down and be silent, or I will have the bailiff remove you. Counselor Thompson, please, continue." Maya waited for the room to fall silent. Every eye was on her. This was not just greed, Your Honor. This was a conspiracy. Mr. Manning and his wife were not just trying to protect Judge Vaughn. They were trying to liquidate him. And there is a very specific, very desperate reason for the timeline. She looked directly at Trevor. His eyes were wide with animal terror. He knew what was coming next. "The petitioners," Maya said, her voice dropping, "are under the mistaken impression that they are the only ones who can run a background check. Mr. Manning's development company is a shell, a ghost, a Ponzi scheme. He has defrauded out-of-state investors out of an estimated $4.5 million. "Objection!" Bishop screamed again, a reflexive, useless sound. "Your Honor, this is not relevant. This is a probate hearing, not a financial crimes trial." "It is entirely relevant, Mr. Bishop," Maya shot back, her voice like steel. "It speaks directly to motive. Mr. Manning is not a concerned son-in-law. He is a desperate criminal about to be indicted who needed my client's assets to fund his legal defense and pay restitution before he is arrested." "Arrested?" Alicia whispered, turning to her husband. Her face was a ruin. "Trevor, what is she talking about? What wire fraud?" Trevor did not say anything. He just stared at the two men in dark suits who were now standing no longer observing by the courtroom doors. Maya closed her briefcase. The final click echoed in the room. "Your Honor," she said, "my client Judge Vaughn asked me to handle this counter-petition, but there is one final piece of evidence, and he has asked to present it himself. With the court's permission." Prentice just nodded, speechless, his eyes glued to me. I stood up. I buttoned my $50 suit jacket. I straightened my hideous polyester tie. I looked at my daughter. I looked at the man who had tried to destroy me. And I looked at the judge. "Your Honor," I said, my voice ringing clear. "Counselor Thompson's claim of motive is indeed relevant, but it is also, unfortunately for Mr. Manning, redundant." I looked at the two federal marshals at the door. "Gentlemen, if you would." The courtroom doors opened. David Markham, the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia, walked in, flanked by two more FBI agents. He was holding one single blue-backed document. "Your Honor," David said, his voice respectful but cold as iron. "My apologies for the interruption. I am U.S. Attorney David Markham. I am here for him." He pointed directly at Trevor Manning. "Trevor Manning," Markham announced, his voice filling the room. "You are under arrest by order of a federal grand jury for 16 counts of wire fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering." The room was absolutely silent as the marshals walked forward. They walked past Alicia's sudden sharp scream. They walked past the gasping, defeated lawyer. They grabbed Trevor by the arms and pulled him to his feet. The sound of the handcuffs clicking shut was the loudest, most beautiful sound I had ever heard. The sound of the handcuffs was like a thunderclap in the small, hot room. Trevor Manning did not protest. He did not yell. He did not make a sound. He simply collapsed. His legs gave out from under him, and he fell backward into his chair, a dead weight. His perfectly coiffed hair was now damp with sweat. His eyes, which had been so cold and arrogant, were wide and blank. He looked like a man who had just been shot and was waiting to feel the pain. Then Alicia screamed. It was not a giggle. It was not a whisper. It was a raw, primal wail of pure, unadulterated terror. It was the sound of a person who was not just watching her life fall apart, but her entire reality. "No!" she shrieked, lunging forward. "Trevor! What is he talking about, Trevor? Tell them it is a mistake, Trevor!" The federal marshals were already pulling him up, his legs dragging. He was not resisting. He was just gone. Their lawyer Bishop was frantic. He looked at his collapsing client, at the screaming woman, at the armed federal agents, and at the furious face of Judge Prentice. He did the only thing a desperate, outmatched lawyer could do. "Your Honor," he shouted, his voice cracking. We withdraw. We withdraw the petition. My clients, they are under duress. We withdraw the case." Judge Prentice looked down at him from the bench, his face carved from ice. "Withdraw," he said, his voice dangerously quiet. "You withdraw, Mr. Bishop. You cannot withdraw a hand grenade after you have already pulled the pin." He slammed his gavel. "Motion denied. You do not get to set this fire and then run from the flames. You will stand there and you will watch it burn. Mr. Markham," he nodded to the U.S. Attorney, "you may remove your prisoner from my courtroom." As the marshals dragged Trevor toward the door, he finally looked at me. His eyes were not angry, they were just empty. He knew. I had not just beaten him, I had ended him. "Alicia," he called out one last time. "Alicia, call." And then he was gone. Alicia was left standing alone in the middle of the room, her hands outstretched, her sobs echoing. She looked around, lost. Her lawyer was stuffing papers into his briefcase, avoiding her eyes, already planning his defense for the state bar. The gallery was buzzing. Judge Prentice was talking to the bailiff. Everyone had abandoned her. She was alone. I waited. I let the silence settle around her. I let her feel the full, crushing weight of what she had done. Then I spoke her name. "Alicia." My voice was not loud, but it cut through her sobs like a razor. She froze. She slowly turned to look at me. Her face was a ruin of smeared makeup and tears. "You thought," I said, walking toward her, "that I was weak. You thought I was a fool, a confused old man who put his mail in the freezer." She shook her head. "Dad, I did not." "You did." I said, my voice cold and calm, the voice of finality. "You and your mother, you both spent your lives believing that. You thought my simplicity was stupidity. You thought my quiet was weakness." I pointed a steady finger around the shabby courtroom. "You thought this was the only world I could afford. You never once stopped to think that this simple house, this quiet life, was my choice. It was my escape," I said, my voice dropping. "It was my sanctuary from the world of money and power and greed that you and your mother loved so much. The world that your husband belongs to. The world that just ate him alive." "Dad, please," she whispered. She was trembling. "I gave you everything," I said. "Not money. I gave you something more valuable. I gave you a normal life. I gave you a father you did not have to share with the newspapers. I gave you a chance to build your own character. I gave you my time. I gave you my protection." I took a step closer. "And you had my love. You had all of it. It was the only real unconditional thing in your entire life. And you took it. You took all that love, and you traded it. You traded it for him." I pointed to the empty chair where Trevor had been sitting. "You traded it for a con man, a liar, a criminal who was so desperate to save his own skin that he convinced you to drug your own father, and you did it." "I did not know," she wailed. "I did not know what it was. He said it was to help you, and you believed him," I asked, and for the first time my voice rose. "You believed it was helping to lie to a court, to have me declared insane, to steal my home. You are not that stupid, Alicia. You are just weak, and you are greedy, just like her." She looked at me, her eyes finally full of the terror I had been waiting to see, the terror of understanding. "I am sorry," she sobbed. "Daddy, I am sorry, please." "You are not sorry," I said, turning away from her. "You are just caught." I looked at Judge Prentice. He was watching me, his face full of a terrible sadness. "Your Honor," I said, my voice returning to the formal tone of the court. "The counter-petition stands. I am requesting full damages." Alicia let out one last broken sound. She had just realized. This was not just over. She was not just losing her husband. She was about to lose everything else. Judge Prentice looked at Alicia. She was still standing in the middle of the room, a lone, sobbing figure in a bright blue dress. The entire courtroom was silent, watching her. Prentice picked up his gavel. His face was no longer pale. It was flushed with a deep, righteous anger. "Mrs. Manning, he said, and his voice was no longer the quiet, terrified whisper. It was the public voice of a judge, cold and clear. You stood in my courtroom and you giggled. You laughed at the man who gave you life while you actively conspired to rob him of his. He looked at the lawyer Bishop, who seemed to be trying to shrink into his own too shiny suit. The petition for guardianship, Prentice declared, his voice rising, is not just dismissed. It is dismissed with extreme prejudice. This court finds that this action was brought forward on the basis of fraud, malice, and perjury. You will never bring this matter before this court or any other court again. Is that clear? Bishop just nodded mute. But we are not finished here, Prentice continued, his eyes zeroing in on Alicia. I am referring this entire file, every exhibit, every piece of testimony, and this court's full transcript, directly to the Fulton County District Attorney's Office for immediate criminal investigation. Alicia's head snapped up. What? No. The charges, Prentice said, as if reading from a list, will include but are not limited to conspiracy to commit fraud, forgery, attempted felony theft, and felony abuse of an elder. Alicia's legs buckled. She grabbed the plaintiff's table to keep from falling. No, please, Judge, please, he is my father. We made a mistake. A mistake, Prentice repeated, his voice laced with contempt. Is forgetting your keys, drugging your father, and attempting to steal his home is a crime. He looked past her toward the back of the courtroom. Mr. Markham, your prisoner. The U.S. Attorney David Markham, who had been standing silently by the door, gave a sharp nod. The two federal marshals, the men who had been observing, stepped forward. They did not look at Alicia. They did not look at me. They walked with a heavy, purposeful tread directly to the plaintiff's table. Alicia watched them, confused. No, not me. Trevor. But Trevor was already finished. He was just sitting there staring at the wood grain on the table, a hollow, empty shell. Trevor Manning, one of the marshals said, his voice flat and devoid of emotion. You are under arrest by order of a federal grand jury for 16 counts of wire fraud conspiracy to commit fraud and violations of the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. The marshal put his hand on Trevor's shoulder. Please stand up, sir. Put your hands behind your back. Trevor stood up. He did not resist. He was like a puppet whose strings had been cut. The sound of the handcuffs clicking shut, that sharp metallic snick-snick, was the loudest sound in the room. It was the sound of a door slamming shut, the sound of a life ending. Alicia let out a final choked sob. Trevor, show. He did not even look at her as they led him away. He was gone. Her partner, her co-conspirator, her future. And she was left standing utterly alone in a silent courtroom, her lawyer already packing his briefcase to run. She was no longer the victor. She was no longer the arrogant daughter. She was just the next defendant in line. Here is the lesson learned from this story. This story is a powerful lesson in underestimation. It teaches us that true power does not come from the money you show, but from the character you have built in silence. Greed, disrespect, and arrogance are not signs of strength. They are fatal weaknesses. While others may judge you by your appearance, your true worth is defined by your integrity and your willingness to stand for the truth. Sometimes the only way to reclaim your dignity is to let your enemies underestimate you right up until the moment you remind them exactly who you are. What would you have done in my place, and have you ever been underestimated by your own family? Let me know your story in the comments below.